Hi, it's Dr. Noel Williams, Optimal Health Associates, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, February 20th, 2025. The first post, I think, of 25. I haven't been doing very many lately because just busy with my day job, taking care of lots of patients, which is my number one thing. But every now and then I do get the urge to post some stuff, and I have that urge now pretty strongly. So hopefully I'll do some more than just this one. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Let's talk about the NIH, Health and Human Services, the FDA, RFK, vaccines, the whole kit and caboodle in 5 minutes. So there's a lot of fear and trepidation in the country, I think mainly driven by the media and large medical industrial complex entities, because the reality is America's healthcare, if you can do all of this research yourself, is terrible. I see it every day when people come into the office where they've not had the right tests, they've been blown off, they've been over-tested, and it's the system. And then you can't get the medications to the patients you want to get them, and so how it works. But where does all of these changes that are going to happen over the next few months to few years, why are they important? They're important, getting back to the original idea, is that the American medical system has failed. We have the second highest cancer rate, we have the highest obesity rate, we have the second highest COVID death rate. It was neck and neck between us and Bulgaria. We have the highest rate of preventable death in younger people. We have the highest death rate from fentanyl or narcotics, overdose. I mean, our diabetes and heart disease is through the roof. Keeping in mind we have all these cardiologists and people taking care of these types of patients, but it really isn't helping anything in the end. I mean, I think cardiologists are wonderful and save lives all the time, but in the end, when you look at it at a societal point of view, we're not being successful. And so what's the problem with change? The NIH has failed. I mean, anyone who thinks the National Institute of Health hasn't failed isn't reading. Now, have they done good things? Absolutely. Will they do good things again? Absolutely. But when you look how they've been run, and you look at how they've silenced anyone who had a different opinion because they have promoted the idea it's settled science now, and if someone like me says, that's not settled, I don't agree with that, and this is why, they'll try to destroy you. Not if you're just local Noel Williams in Oklahoma City, potentially, but if you're an academic center somewhere. And back in COVID, there were plenty of people who would have liked to destroy me locally, who were physicians. But, you know, because people can't understand that science isn't settled, and people can read papers and do statistics. And so the NIH has spent billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I'll just give one example. They've spent $25 billion over the last 25 years on Alzheimer's research. Where are we on that? Well, we're nowhere. We have a few drugs that have been approved that don't work, okay? They essentially don't work. The statistics show that they got approved because of pressure from patient groups that were sponsored by the big pharma companies who drove these drugs. And since the FDA has spent all this money, and they have nothing to show for it, because the entire issue is the theory of amyloid plaque is probably wrong, but since that's what the theory was in 2000, that's what they went with. Well, it hasn't worked. Are they going to change? No time soon. Look at the National Cancer Institute and the FDA and the NIH. What percentage of chemotherapeutics actually change survival rates? 32% of FDA approved chemotherapeutics. So that's a whole nother subject. We need to audit the FDA on their approval process on oncologic drugs that are, run $25,000 to $50,000 a month, that really don't work or add any life to people. And then you flip over to things like the CDC and how they handled COVID and how they handle flu. We have the biggest flu infection rates we've had in forever. There's a lot of theories why, but one of them is the vaccine doesn't work. And very clearly it hasn't, and it never does. And if you go to the Cochrane reviews, you can see that the flu vaccine really doesn't work. It's a waste of time. You're just torturing your immune system, but people do it because they do it. But it's just silly. And then you look at the COVID boosters, they don't work. The FDA's finally, in the last gasp of the prior administration, the FDA had, because he wanted a job somewhere or wanted to be on an academic board somewhere, finally okayed for the first time ever, we're going to do a randomized controlled trial on the booster, except there won't be a placebo. So again, it's not a real trial. I mean, it will be some other vaccine. And that's the thing with the vaccines that people don't understand, is there hasn't been a true placebo-controlled vaccine study in the last 50 years. And why does that matter? Because you can't tell safety when you're giving a patient a vaccine, and then the placebo, which isn't saline, is another group of vaccines, which is the majority of them that are quote unquote placebo, and they're unknown even to the study investigators like me who did the HPV vaccine study, or it's aluminum salts or some other substance that's toxic. And so that's a problem for many people, that we don't have safety studies. I could go on and on about that. I don't want to open up that whole can of worms, but there's problems with the science about vaccines. There is not a true safety study. Do they work? Yes. I mean, the HPV vaccine is phenomenal at stopping HPV-related cancers. The question is, though, is it safe? I don't think you can answer that based on the current data. And I think if you actually look at the data like I do, as one of the principal investigators looking at it again, we know that there's at least a doubling in serious neurologic injury in the people who got the vaccine, but we can't get any more data than that, than a meta-analysis conclusion. So there's a lot of issues with this stuff. So we need to have some change agents. So you have RFK coming in, who's going to focus on, oh my goodness, nutrition. What is wrong with focusing on nutrition? We're going to have Dr. Macri come into the FDA and really try to get them up to snuff. He's from Johns Hopkins. He's a colorectal surgeon. He's in the National Academy of Science and Medicine. He wrote a book that I'd strongly recommend called Blind Spots to read. It will be eye-opening for you to understand so many medical issues have been mismanaged flagrantly. In particular, I think the one that is the most, there's so many, it's hard, but that peanut allergies were actually caused by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Totally disgusting and disturbing, but you just have to read the book and see the science. And then you got Dr. Buttigieg from Stanford, who got booted essentially from the NIH during COVID for saying, no, the Barrington Declaration was right. We need to focus on older people and not little kids. And that stuff, they gave him the boot. They ran him out, Frank Collins and Anthony Fauci. Well, now he's going to be in charge of the NIH. And people sometimes will say he's a radical. He's just a scientist and medical economist who actually reads and understands stuff. And that's what's so crazy. If you actually read and understand something and say it's not appropriate, or we need to at least ask the question, is it safe, you get in trouble now. So that's what's going on. And I think everyone should be very hopeful. We're going to get some change. We're going to get some change on NIH, how they did their grants, because it's baloney. If you actually knew about it and read about it, you would see how much money is wasted. And it's a completely corrupt system for institutions to make billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, not doing any of the research. That's the best part. Somewhere like Yale or Harvard gets 62 to 69% off the top of every grant from the NIH, just goes to their general coffers for general expenses. I mean, it's disturbing and disgusting. So that's one of the things that I think we don't need to get all Twitter-pated about. That's what the media's going on and on about. But why? We need to change. We need to have some smart people reevaluating what's going on. Is that enough, Kim, or do I need to prattle on about that?
I'm sure that's enough.
I'm sure that's enough. Well, anyway, great. posting, and I'll be doing some more. Take care. Bye.